What does an aeroplane with nearly 2,000 horsepower at the end of the war, built from the finest materials of construction, designed in Bavaria and built by German craftsmen, nicknamed the Augsburg Eagle, would you believe, have in common with a little World War II Jeep here from Toledo, Ohio, built out of cast iron and American steel and nicknamed after a cartoon character from Popeye? Let's find out today. Yes, hello everyone, it's Green Dot 319. How are we all doing today? Thanks for joining me. Now, yes, we are on a very unusual tale today, something pretty out of the ordinary here, and it all stems from something I saw on the G503 Facebook page. Someone had posted a little thing out of the Yank magazine. Have a look at this little snippet out of the Yank magazine. Now, when I see something like that, that's a pretty unusual story, isn't it? It can't possibly be true, can it? You can't really put bits of a Messerschmitt 109 inside a Jeep and get up and go if you need to. Had to be resourceful in World War II, you know, needs must when you're out there. If you find something that works, go for it. It just seems too unlikely to me. Have a look at this. This is the piston from a DB605A engine from a 1943 Messerschmitt 109. You can see the size of the thing, you know, it's absolutely huge. What about the size of a Jeep engine? You can hide it behind a Messerschmitt 109 piston. You see, the things are so completely different. Jeep's got 4 of these, 2.2 litres. Messerschmitt 109 DB605 engine has got 12 of these for 37 litres, about 1475 horsepower, and at the end of the war, nearly 2,000 horsepower going through an engine. They can't possibly have anything in common. The spark plugs which run an engine like this can't possibly work in an engine with pistons this big. It's as big as my face practically. I mean, unbelievable. But would you believe I happen to have some bits of a Messerschmitt 109. Let's go and have a look. Yes, peeps, I'm in the unusual position of owning quite a few bits of 109, would you believe? Such as things like this, which is a cooler flap out of a crashed 109. I also happen to have a set of spark plugs, which go in a DB605A engine, which is what this bit in the Yank magazine is talking about. It's about 1943 in Italy, so it's going to be a DB605A out of a G, a 109G or F. So, why don't we see if this is really true, whether you can take spark plugs from a Messerschmitt 109, fit them in your Jeep engine, and off you go. They should run perfectly according to this little note. Is it really true, or is this just something somebody found out one day? They were digging around on some old broken up 109s and they found, hey look, the spark plugs are exactly the same, the thread diameter on them is exactly the same as goes in our Jeep engines. Who knows? Let's try and find it out. No one's tried to do it in 80 years nearly, so why don't we give it a go and see what happens? So let's get to it. As ever, peeps, I really appreciate you joining me today. So if I've earned your subscription or a like today, just feel free to do that. Feel free to comment down below as well. It really helps me out, gives me ideas, and I really appreciate it. I mean, I've got a good audience here anyway as well, so if you could join me, I'd really appreciate it today. So let's get to it and put some Luftwaffe bits inside an old Jeep. Okay then, first things first, what have we actually got here? Well, to start off with, we've got a reconditioned AN7, original World War II AN7 Jeep spark plug. Obviously, in the past, you didn't just throw stuff away. You used to recondition things like spark plugs and get more use out of them, unlike today. But that is a original AN7 plug for a Jeep, and that's what it looks like. We've got a bit of a gap there, you can see with our spark plug, and it projects just a little bit. Right, in here is our German friend. This is a new old stock German Messerschmitt spark plug. It's a DW250 ET7 spark plug, and this is what the 109 was fitted with throughout the war. You can see the electrodes are pretty different. They've got a different job, or should I say, they come under different conditions of operation than a little Jeep engine does. These things have to really resist being, you know, they go through a hell of a lot of pressure, extreme pressure and heat and temperature, so you don't want them to erode. So they're designed quite differently and they have a very small gap. But that's what we've got here. Now, first things I'm noticing is it looks like the thread's the same, the diameter is the same, the thread looks the same, so there seems to be some legs with this. So obviously somebody somewhere did at one point unscrew an ME109 spark plug and look at it and notice it's the same as an AN7. Let's stick it in a head and see if it actually fits then. Right, here's my smelly old junk head, and here is our Messerschmitt 109 spark plug. Let's see, let's screw a bit of Messerschmitt into a bit of Jeep. Oh yeah, I think, yeah, there we go, perfect. Nice. Hey, this looks like it's gonna work. There you go. Same thread, same fit. Amazing, hey? They use the same thread, it's ridiculous. So the only thing is, if we spin it over, okay, cool. Yeah, there's a bit of projection, that's good. What I'm worried about here is this spark is going to be really hidden down inside it. When you've got the spark coming out of this, it's pushed up just a little bit and a little bit more exposed, but this is going to be quite hidden down. I'm just concerned about that. But so far so good, it fits in there. So it looks like you can fit 109 spark plugs inside a Jeep. Right, let's move on to the next bit of this. Okay, next part of our adventure. Here's a problem. This is where this story is going to break down a little bit because it doesn't cover this. The ignition system and ignition leads on a 109 spark plug are very different to a Jeep's leads, okay? This has got to go flying around in an aeroplane. You can't just have leads stuck into the end of it like you do on an old Jeep. You know, they'll come off and your engine will stop. So you can't have that. You have to have it screwed in and done up properly and everything like that. Obviously, if we can get the spark plug in there and our ignition wire in there, that isn't going to work. So if they did really use Messerschmitt spark plugs in a Jeep at one point, they would have had to have done something different with the ignition cables. Have a look at this here. This is my ignition harness, or crashed ignition harness from a 109. You can see it's got, it's quite involved. It's all hidden away. The leads aren't open and free. And you can see you've got little screw bits to screw onto the end here to keep it all connected. Obviously, you could cut those off and solder them onto the wires, the ignition wires here on a Jeep, and you could use these spark plugs if you cut those off. So if you had a crash 109, you pull the spark plugs out, cut off the connectors, and then you could use it. So that's how I think, if this really did happen, that's probably what they would have done. But it does seem unlikely because you'd have to solder it all back together and everything. So it's getting a bit more difficult. Now the question is, if we want to actually replicate what they're talking about in this, we need to do something as well. So let's clean these spark plugs up, and then let's get building an ignition harness for these 109 spark plugs in a Jeep. Oh my God. Right, peeps, yes, we've got our 109 spark plugs in our engine, so you can do it, so they do go in there. The next thing, like I said, is we've got to do this ignition wiring. Now, Danny at Joe's Motorpool got me some wires, which was nice of him, and he's made them a bit longer so that I can fit them around my ones fitted on here. We've got some repro bits as well to use, because I don't want to use my cap and rotor and things like that, just in case it causes any problems with my original stuff. But the problem we've got is, you've got this big hole where the wire would go down and then be screwed in at the top, right? There's a spring in there which keeps contact, but look, there's way too much space. It's not going to stay on there. So what I'm thinking is, we'll put it in, we'll put this to hold it. Look, instead of the screw cap, it'll be held on by the rubber cap. That's pretty good, but it can still go up and down. So I'm thinking, if we slice some bits of hose, put this over the outside of this, and then prod it in, that should give some resistance in there, and I think that should keep it in enough, well enough, seated enough, just for what we're trying to do, just trying to check it out. I don't think you can drive too far like that because it'll start coming off and causing problems, but just what we're doing, I think this is probably the way we're going to bodge it to get it to work. Let's see if it'll fit on there. Pretty good. Do you ever look at yourself and wonder what you're doing? I mean, I don't think that building an ignition harness for a Jeep using World War II Messerschmitt 109 spark plugs is particularly usual way to spend your time. But at the same time, I've got nothing else to do today. Okay peeps, we've got our janky ignition system set in here, and actually I'm quite pleased with it. Using parts that they would have had, you can get a pretty good contact there. All those springs inside it are pushed down, so there should be good contact. Obviously we've got wires all over the place, but I'm kind of hopeful that this is going to work. I think it's going to work. We're going to shortly be able to answer the question that no one's asked in 78 years, and no one is asking as well. Can you use 109 spark plugs inside a World War II Jeep? Now, before we do that, just write down in the comments what you reckon. Do you reckon this is going to work or not? Personally, I think it'll run. I don't think there's any reason it shouldn't run. They're spark plugs, right? They're in an engine. They should be fine. But whether it's going to run well or not is difficult to say. Spark plugs are matched to engines, and they work, you know, they work well depending on what they're put in. Also, a 109 has 2 spark plugs in it as well, so not just one. So we're just going to have to see how it goes here, but I'm not sure. So let me know what you think down below and see if you're right. But let's get in and have a go at this. Okay then peeps, here it is then. For the first time in 78 years, is this just a story that they made up because they found that 109 spark plugs had the same thread as Jeep spark plugs? Or did they really use Jeep spark plugs, or should I say 109 spark plugs, to get out of a fix? Let's see. I'm not sure. I really don't know what's going to happen. Now, this is cold, so we'll put some choke on it. It usually starts straight away. But here we go. Let's find out then. Ignition's on. Out of gear. Firing all cylinders. Oh, there's something, it's not firing on all cylinders there. It wasn't totally happy, was it? Something's not right. Right, let's go through it, let's have a look and see if we've got all these connections made. These spark plugs haven't run before, so it could be the spark plugs, or it could be a connection. I'm just going to go through it and see what I can find. Right then, I've had a look through it. I didn't spot anything. It was running really rough. I think it was firing on all cylinders, but it's just really, really rough. It didn't sound happy at all. It smells pretty fuely as well. Let's have another go and see what happens, right? See if it gets out of it. Maybe it just needs waking up. It isn't happy. It is not. A little bit smoother. It does not. It does not like those spark plugs one bit. It's running. It seems to be running on all cylinders, but it is rough as a rough thing. I can hear various tonking and tinking noises as well. So I don't think it likes 109 spark plugs at all. I don't think those GIs use these to get out of a bind with this. I don't think you can drive that. Let's pull one and have a look. Let's see what's going on inside there. Okay, what have we got? Ugh. Yowza. That is a fuely horrible plug. Oh my god, that is fouled. Yeah, it is not burning at all properly in there. Look at that. Look at all that oily, fuely looking mess. You saw what the plugs looked like when they came out, you know, bone dry, very clear, but look at that. Not nice. Obviously these plugs can't deal with it. They're not getting proper combustion in there, and it isn't working. So the answer to whether you can use 109 spark plugs in a Jeep and drive it, it'll run, but it doesn't seem to like it at all. Right, I've put its old plugs back in so we can just compare them. This is how it should run normally. Pretty good. Not like when it has 109 plugs fitted to it. Well then, what do we make of that? I mean, I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. I thought it would probably run okay, but there seems to be a real difference between the way the spark plugs run, you know, designed to run inside an engine, with big old pistons like this and big old displacement and combustion pressures and boost pressures, in comparison to a little Jeep engine like this. Very different. They behave very differently as well. You can see it did not like running at all. It was not happy. Now, there's always the possibility, perhaps if I played around with the ignition timing maybe, or did some other little tweaks, perhaps I could get it to run smoother, but it was always feeling a bit lumpy and a bit unwell. And, you know, having spent a lot of time and money on this Jeep engine, I didn't want to muck around with it too much and risk upsetting it. But it's interesting to see whether you can fit and run a Jeep engine using Luftwaffe Messerschmitt 109 spark plugs. Yes, apparently you can. Does it run perfectly? No, it does not seem to run perfectly as far as I could see. As you said, could it get you out of a bind? Yeah, if you've got no spark plugs, jam them in there, you'd be able to get away and escape. But for normal use, I don't think so. They're designed very differently, and they did not seem to like it. But very interesting nonetheless. Can we call it that this is real? Did people really run their Jeeps using 109 spark plugs? I'm not sure. I'll leave that for you to make your mind up about it. Yeah. It's not something I would be doing, let's put it that way. But that's it for today, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. You know, that was an interesting little thing there with mixing the old Messerschmitt and the old World War II Jeep. But join me next time, like and subscribe, and we'll get on to some more Jeeping things. See ya.